This episode is proudly supported by Crunch. Running a hospitality business isn't for the faint-hearted. Between ordering stock, scheduling rosters, paying bills, motivating your team, and keeping customers happy, there's a lot on your plate. It's no surprise that business planning often gets put on the back burner. Well, here's something that can help. Introducing Crunch, a new app to help simplify the business side of hospo. With Crunch, you get access to practical, bite-sized education, proven strategies, and a supportive community of hospo owners just like you. When it comes to the Crunch, if you're looking for proven ways to build a successful, sustainable business, Crunch has you covered. Try Crunch now. To get 14 days free, just head to crunchhospo.com.au.
We tell our staff the customer is not always right. Controversial, I know, but that it's the same thing. They're being welcomed into our space, and I would welcome someone into my home, and I would get them a drink, and I would say, please sit on my sofa, but I wouldn't allow them to treat me badly. And it's the exact same in our venues.
It is Dani Valent here with you for another episode of Dirty Linen. Great to be with you again. A reminder for listeners that we have a fortnightly newsletter from the Deep in the Weeds podcast network, and we would love to send it to you if you're not already on our list. Sign up at any of the Instagram accounts or go to our website, deepintheweeds.com.au, and sign up so we can chat to you in a different way. Today we are talking to a cafe owner in Melbourne. We absolutely love celebrating milestones on Dirty Linen. Any milestone is worth celebrating. And when I heard that Small Axe Kitchen was celebrating 8 years, I thought, this is a good excuse to have a chat to Kirstyn about all things she's doing at Small Axe. I know we're going to chat about the cafes, about other business streams. Work-life balance is something we've touched on as well. And of course, culture in hospitality, safe workplaces is something that we are all thinking and talking about a lot at the moment. So we are going to go there as well. Aren't we, Kirstyn?
We are.
Oh, 8 years. Happy birthday.
Thank you. It feels like a milestone, even though it's not a whole number that we would usually mark, you know?
That's true. But tell me why you felt like it was worth celebrating.
Oh, for us, I guess because the last half of that 8 years have been such a struggle that it just felt like we've crawled over the line of the 8 years. And I don't know, there's something about the number 8, it's eternal and all of that jazz. So yeah, it just really more than ever, more than any other birthday or anniversary for Small Axe, it just really felt like this year we have to mark the occasion. Let's talk about the fact that we're still here.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that is definitely something to mark and celebrate. How did it feel? Like, did your regulars come and cheers you with their cafe lattes? What happened?
Absolutely. We honestly have the best community of regulars. It's this extended group that whether they're coming in, every week or every day or once a month, or we have people that have moved overseas and still stay in contact and come, when they're in the country, that we're really grateful for our regulars. But it was nice. We celebrated by doing a discount of some things, and we had lots of people through the doors and lots of people wishing us happy birthday, and thankfully Melbourne weather held up as well, so it was good vibes all round.
I love that. Oh, you do have a great outdoor area at Small Axe. So for people who haven't been to the cafe, tell us a little bit about it.
So it's a Melbourne brunch fare, it's what you would expect. There's some staples that you would expect to find on a brunch menu in Melbourne, but it's very much inspired by Southern Italian cuisine, which is so diverse in and of itself. Quite a few years ago, my husband, who is the head chef, and I went to Sicily, which is where his mum was born, and we learned more about the food and the food culture there than we had before. And we were like, oh my gosh, this is so perfect for brunch scene in Melbourne. And so that was what sort of inspired it. And because Sicily has been invaded by everyone, everyone's left their little food stamp as they've come and gone. And so for us, we're like, what does that look like here with the influences that we have? What does Sicilian cuisine look as a brunch menu? So that's sort of what we do.
So, the dish I'm going to ask you about. Tell me about a dish that really speaks to the project there.
So the breakfast pasta is what we're famous for. That really came about because although I say there's the staples on the menu of what you would expect, we don't have everything is not as it seems, if you will. So for us, that was sort of a play on bacon and eggs on toast, essentially. I love pasta. Adam loves pasta. I could eat pasta 3 times a day if I could. But it's a egg with a pork product and a carb. So it's essentially filling that hole. But it is a beautiful, slow cooked egg, and it's got guanciale. We use guanciale, which is a cured pork jowl, and so that's nice and crispy. So that's your eggs and bacon. And then the pasta that we use is a macaroni, which is like back in the day, it would have been made by twirling the pasta along a knitting needle or something like that. And then there's the freshness of peas and herbs. So even though it is, quite carby, it's really zesty and fresh and not heavy at all. And then you crack that egg and you stir it through and it emulsifies with the rest of the goodness. And it is a delight. It is such a beautiful dish that we've had on the menu for 8 years now, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's an absolute winner. And to hear you talk about it, I feel like it's not far in my future that I need to come back for another beautiful oozy bowl. And yeah, I agree. There is no wrong time of day for pasta. As well as the kitchen or, the cafe we've been talking about, Kirstyn, you've also got the deli. So tell us about the different streams to your business.
So the cafe, Small Axe Kitchen, is as you would expect. It's a static site. We open 7 days a week for lunch and brunch, whereas the deli, there's lots of moving parts. So the deli, we have a huge prep kitchen there, and that's where we do a lot of the prep for the cafe. But we also have a catering arm of the business, and we do all of that out of the deli. The front, we serve panini and focaccia and, of course, our lasagna and those sorts of things that people can come and have a glass of wine and have a panini during the day. But yeah, most of the activity is behind the scenes and you don't even see it.
And what about wholesaling and getting your products into other people's shelves?
Yeah, so this is something that we are working on pretty aggressively at the moment. It's something that was always on our, in our grand plan, but I don't know if you heard, there was a couple of years that everything turned upside down. So we put those things on pause. But we make lasagna, and our lasagna is the best lasagna you're ever going to get in a packet. I stand by it. And we want to get it out there. We want to share it with the world. We've had such great feedback and support from our customers. And so finally we're ready to, start extending where we can sell it.
And why, it's such a big claim. There's a lot of lasagna out there. Why is yours the best?
Because it's made in small batches and it's made by hand. Lasagna is one of those things that which is actually one of the biggest reasons we haven't scaled it at this point. But to scale it, you're going to lose that human touch, and that's what makes it delicious. As soon as you're making things in huge quantities, it's like people end up adding lots of sugar and lots of salt to try and expedite the process. But really, it's time. The best way to get a good sugo is to just time. Cook it low and slow for as long as you can, and that's what we do. So we cook the bolognese for 24 hours, and then each lasagna is made by hand. So we're not trying to rush the process. And it's how we would cook it at home. It's not just restaurant quality. This is home cooking. And the only reason that we get a bit of shelf life out of it is because we're vac sealing it and taking the oxygen out. But it really is not a commercial product as such.
Now I want lasagna as well as breakfast pasta. So Kirstyn, I think you're at such an interesting stage of your business. as you say, there was a couple of pretty curly curveball years in there. So it's almost like you're 6, but you're also 8, but you're sort of in that midlife of a business. And I think it's such an interesting time to reflect on how you spend your time, how you create any semblance of balance. It's a family business and there's a lot of family heritage in the recipes as well. Like, how do you go about fitting these businesses into your life?
It's challenging. Anyone who owns any kind of small business would attest to that. But it's something that's really important. We've got small children, although they're not that small now. We've got a 10 and a 14-year-old. So when we started the business, they were small. And it's always been about making sure that we still have time to spend with them. I don't want them to resent the business. I don't want them to feel that it's taken us away from them in any way. We want it to contribute positively to both our lives and their lives. And so, we haven't always got that balance right, but it's always something that we're conscious of. And I don't know, I guess it's that old saying, if you love what you do, then it doesn't feel like work. And I do agree, if you're not waking up every morning dreading going to work, it definitely does feel like there's a little more balance there. But it's all the 1%ers that make a difference, I guess.
Well, tell us about some of those. Like, what are some of your strategies?
I guess, in all honesty, it's learning how to say no. So as a business owner, and especially in those first years, you don't want to say no to anything. You don't want to say no to any opportunity because the opportunity may not come up again. But we really have to run the numbers. Is this opportunity going to be financially beneficial now? Is this going to build a really good relationship in the future? If it's not going to do those things, why are we doing it? If we're just going to sort of end up leveled and square, then maybe we should actually turn this one down and prioritize something else instead. So it's really tricky to do that, but that's something that we sort of ask ourselves those questions often.
That's interesting, because I suppose to be able to do that, you'd need to be very clear on your cost of goods and labour that's going to go into something. I mean, is that a important foundation for you?
Yeah, definitely. In the beginning of the cafe, we worked a lot. Adam and I were there 7 days a week. The kids were being shipped off to grandparents. And, it was the start. We had to be. There was no way of us doing what we were doing if we just weren't there, shoulder to shoulder with our staff and pushing together. And so that was really important, and we don't regret that. But then we were like, okay, we've got some momentum now. Things are growing at a good pace organically. We've got a great team. How do we now make this business run with us working a 40-hour week? What are the steps that we have to do to be able to make that something that's possible? So that's when we started really looking at those little details.
And were there some things that surprised you? Some things you felt, we know this works, but then when you started really crunching it, you were like, oh, actually, maybe not.
Yeah, lots of things. And we're constantly reassessing, and of course the playing field is constantly changing. Even little things like, we're in Brunswick. Brunswick is saturated for cafes. So if we were opening really early in the morning, how many of those coffees are we actually getting in the morning? Are we better off actually just being open so that our staff are doing an 8-hour day rather than having to have a changeover of 2 different staff during the day because we were open for so long? And what are those figures and what's that going to look like? And what we established is that we don't need to open super early. There's plenty of other places that our customers can get a coffee super early in the morning. We're not letting anybody down, and it means that we can have an 8-hour day start to finish for our staff. So it's constant learning and constant reassessing to see where we can tweak things. Absolutely.
That's really interesting because, for you to say we're not letting our customers down because they can go somewhere else. I mean, that is a pretty scary thing to say as a business owner because, especially early days, you just really want every footstep in the door that you can possibly get. So do you have to get to a point where you feel strong enough in your offering, strong enough in the ties you've created in community that you can not be there every minute of the day?
Absolutely. And don't get me wrong, that was not something that we did straight away. That was for the first 4 years, but pre-COVID times, we were open those long hours. It was after that we've made that assessment. We actually got really good advice from a dear friend very early on that was like, don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Just focus on what you do and do it the best you can. And so anytime that we've had, a wave of anxiety because there's a new something opening around the corner, or there's someone else that's doing something similar over there, or whatever, that we stop and go, actually, we don't need to worry about that. We just need to focus on what we're doing and that we're doing it really well. And that's all that matters. Because we can't worry about another cafe or another hospo venue in Brunswick because it's the epicenter,
Well, it really is, and it is very competitive. It must be such a balance between keeping an eye on trends, but then not worrying too much about what other people are doing, just honing in on your strengths, being confident in that amazing lasagna. Is that sort of, I suppose, business values something that you've consciously talked about, at home or over the past? Like, is it something that your staff are aware of? How much of these are open and ongoing discussions?
Yeah, I would say so, actually, because even when we have our regular meetings, we talk a lot about, that our spaces is like our house. So we don't need to worry about how people run things in other venues. That for us, we're welcoming you into our space. Don't worry, don't touch that. I'll get that for you. You don't need to do anything, and you're going to have a great time. So we're not often talking about external factors. It's very much what's happening inside the walls when we're in there, because that's what we can impact, we can change, we can have influence over. We can't have influence over anything outside of those walls.
You mentioned to me earlier, Kirstyn, you've recently spent a month in Sicily. Hello, very jealous. Give me some highlights, but also you mentioned that, when you came back, your focus had changed a little bit. Where you wanted to put your energy was perhaps somewhat different. Tell us first about Sicily, and then tell me about that.
We had the most amazing trip ever. I've been lucky enough to have a number of holidays and overseas trips, throughout my life. And this was by far the best ever. We went over for a family wedding, and so there was lots of family things happening as well. And it was glorious. It was such a nice time. And 4 whole weeks with our kids was amazing as well. So I'm very, very grateful that we were able to do that. And it was so wonderful because it wasn't that we were discovering new things in terms of food, because it was more actually validating to some of the things that we're doing and that we're doing them well. But it was the balance thing that we came back thinking, lots of culturally Italians don't want for much, and they're happy with what they have. And I think that maybe I feel like we've been tricked here, that we have to work really hard, long hours, identify as being busy all the time, and then we buy things that we maybe don't need, and we show our things off to our friends, and then we go back to work again. And we sort of came back saying maybe we could just work less and have less and just do more things, make more memories and have adventures instead. So they're the sorts of conversations that we're having. Like, do we really need to work that so hard? Do we really need to say that, how are you? Oh, I'm busy. Oh, good. That's good, isn't it? Yes. That's not necessarily good. Could we be working smarter, not harder? I don't know. That they're the conversations that are going on in our house.
I love it. It's really revolutionary. And what great questions to ask yourselves. I guess, how do you start to answer those when you run, a couple of businesses?
It comes back to those initial questions. Do we need to do this? Is this something that's beneficial? Lots of things that require our time, maybe obscure hours, or someone wants something catering in a really far away place, and we go like, oh, I really want, I'm so honoured and flattered that these people want us to cater their event, but is this going to impact us on us in a positive way? And so it comes back to asking those questions. And don't get me wrong, Dani, I do not have the answers, but the questions are being asked. And I guess if we keep asking ourselves these questions, then we're going to be, humbled and reminded by them.
Yeah, I love that. It is really hard to say no. I mean, I feel that as a freelancer, you don't know if they're going to ask you to do it next time if you say no. And I sort of feel a sense of relief and dread if I say yes and if I say no. It's really hard to work out whether you've done the right thing. But I mean, what kinds of outcomes let you know that you have made the right decisions?
I guess we don't always. This is the thing. Like I said, I don't have the answers. And I completely agree with that you feel equal parts relieved and then also guilty. But I don't know. There's times that I guess sometimes some of the things that might happen is that people are okay with you saying no and then they come back again later. So you feel like you haven't ruined a potential, relationship. Also, maybe things not going to plan in other aspects, or knowing that you were maybe going to overcommit by taking something on and then you've said no and then other things have become quite difficult and you're like, gosh, I really am glad that we didn't take that extra work on. That was the right call to make. Those sorts of things. But it's, we are trying to make the right call and to assess everything, but we definitely don't get it right all of the time.
Well, I think asking the questions is such a massive step. Kirstyn, what about workplace culture? As employers, that is such an enormous responsibility to take on. What kinds of, I suppose, attitudes and processes do you have in place?
So for us, we're a family business. Like I said in the beginning, we were there every single day, shoulder to shoulder with everyone. So if there was any issue ever, customers maybe behaving in a not great way, or, we were there. So we always put ourselves forward, and we were the shield, and we were who stood up to anything that needed to be dealt with. We have a really great team in place now, so people feel confident that there's someone who's got their back. Part of our training is that we tell our staff the customer is not always right. Controversial, I know, but that it's the same thing. They're being welcomed into our space, and I would welcome someone into my home, and I would get them a drink, and I would say, please sit on my sofa, but I wouldn't allow them to treat me badly. And it's the exact same in our venues. So we reiterate over and over again. We really stress to our staff that we've got their back. That they need to feel confident and safe at all times, and that if they're being treated poorly because customers are rude or aggressive, which unfortunately it does happen, that they need to know that they're not going to get in trouble for standing up for themselves, that we absolutely support them in that.
That's really interesting. And what about things that may happen between staff members? Not saying that they have, but what sort of processes do you have in place if something was to happen?
Yeah, look, it's lots of conversations. When you have a group of people working together, there's always going to be a clash of personalities or, misunderstandings or whatever. And to be honest, in the last 8 years, that's been the thing that has been maybe not the most challenging, but something I hadn't really thought would consume as much energy as it does, because it's almost like having older children, that I am constantly having to sit down and check in with people. Everybody responds differently to situations. And so something that someone might find is, just another day, someone else might be really affected by. And there's lots of conversations that are happening to make sure that everybody's feeling feeling okay about everything. And we're a small business, so we don't have an HR team. We don't have departments, but we are really open. And so thankfully we have really good relationships with our staff. So we are pretty in tune when something's a bit off or something's not great, and that we like to just nip things in the bud really quickly. You know, if someone has an issue or if someone needs something dealt with, then we do our best to deal with that. I don't want anybody coming to work and not feeling safe or comfortable ever. I don't want that. No way.
Do you feel as a small business owner that there are enough resources or places for you to turn to help you navigate this kind of stuff?
Not really, to be honest. It's difficult to know where to look. We are lucky that we have a pretty good network of friends who are also hospitality small business owners, and so we quite often turn to each other and ask questions and ask for support, on various things, all sorts of things. But no, there's lots of things that I don't even know where to start. This is not my area of expertise. I'm really good at hosting and writing lists. So it's definitely something that we've learned a lot about in the last 8 years. And yeah, there's not enough resources.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, we often hear from people in hospitality that they feel quite isolated, even though it's a industry that's all about welcome and community. The people that are creating those experiences often don't have that similar experience of welcome and people to turn to. It's a shame that everybody has to start from scratch when they run a business, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And it's scary to think that you're going to do the wrong thing because there's no leeway. There's no grace period, So there's this obligation on us to know absolutely everything about everything from the get-go. And we do our best, but we don't. And so that learning on the go, you go, oh gosh, like can I call this person or can I ask that question? Am I going to get in trouble for even asking that question? That there's lots of unknowns. But I don't know what the solution to that is either.
You mentioned that customers are not always right, and it's great. I mean, it's definitely true. Why would they be? Do you think behaviour from customers is becoming more challenging, especially in an environment perhaps where they have less money? You might have to put prices up. As you say, there's a lot of competition for their dollar. Do you feel like that sense of entitlement is growing?
I don't know if it's growing. I feel like it's pretty steady. I don't honestly think that that's changed much. There's a percentage of people that treat service staff across all service industries really poorly. And I feel like it's much of a muchness in terms of whether it's changed or not. But it's an disappointing number of people. It's something that happens on a very regular basis. And I don't think people realize that they have the ability to make or break our day. Sometimes you get the nicest customer and you're just on a high from that interaction for the rest of the day. And then other times you have this awful interaction with people that are just so nasty that it ruins your day, and I just don't think people realize the power that they have.
It is so disappointing, as you say. I just cannot understand why people would go into interactions with other people trying to make them feel worse. Like, why wouldn't you just always be trying to leave people feeling better about the other people we all share a world with?
I know, it is. We always try and kill them with kindness. If we've got someone that's come in and they're grumpy and they're blunt and rude, we always say, let's kill them with kindness. We know that once they finish that plate of food, they're going to be so happy because it's so delicious. They're going to have to be nice to us.
You've got your superpowers and then your superpower lasagna as well. I love that. Kirstyn, so wonderful to catch up with you. I wonder if you might leave us just with a little bit of advice for other small business owners that, just wondering, maybe they're feeling it a bit in the thick of it. What are some mindset things that they could carry into their next workday?
Oh, I guess that we should all be really grateful that we are here in any capacity at the moment, that it's important to remind ourselves that lots of people are struggling and there's some solace in knowing that everybody is doing it tough, and to ask lots of questions. We're all humans, like you said, interacting in this world, and it doesn't matter if it's like, to customers or to staff or to suppliers, that I find the days that are the most challenging are the days that I've had as the least amount of human interactions. And so for me, I'm a social person. So if I'm having a day that it's really tricky, I just go out the front and I talk to customers and I have those interactions that I love so much. And you go, it's fine. I'll get through all the other stuff. No worries.
I love it. Oh, that's such a lovely series of things for us to leave us with. Kirstyn, thank you so much for your time, and all the best for the next 8 years at Small Axe Kitchen and Small Axe Deli. And look forward to seeing and eating your lasagnas in fridges around town. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.
This